this recording will be posted on TraceLink University. So welcome to this tech talk with Peter Monahan. It's on Mint, so exchanging business transactions with Mint. I'm just going to go through a little bit about Peter and the antitrust guidelines before I hand over to Peter for the presentation. And as always, I'm going to ask questions after Peter's presented, and then you'll have the opportunity to ask any questions that you have. So if I could just go on to the next slide. So this tech talk, as mentioned, is on exchanging business transactions with Mint. Peter is the senior director within the Center of Excellence, and he is a TraceLink founder and has been at the company for 13 years. And he has been currently leading the COE effort for the Mint and SCWM solutions. In this tech talk, he's going to delve into how companies can use TraceLink's multi-enterprise information network tower, otherwise known as Mint, to exchange serialized shipments and business data such as PO and invoices with their supply chain partners. Before I hand it over, I'm just going to go through these antitrust guidelines. As always, our courses are public, and just so we ask you not to engage in any discussions regarding pricing, deal making, selling, promoting, or any other activities which could be seen as anti-competitive. If you believe the discussions are approaching these boundaries, just say so, and I will stop the discussion thread until TraceLink legal counsel is consulted before proceeding. And then our class guidelines, again, because they are public and limited to an allotted time, we just ask you to refrain from initiating any discussions about company-specific examples. If I feel like the course is straying from the original agenda, I'll just need to redirect the discussion. And likewise, if you feel like the course is straying from the original agenda, just say so, and we will redirect the discussion too. So I'm going to hand over to Peter now.
Great, thank you, Laura, and thanks everyone for joining. So, as Laura mentioned, I'm going to talk to you about, I'll use the term Mint, and that stands for Multi-Enterprise Information Network Tower, and we'll talk a little bit more about that specifically in a second. But first, hopefully at this point everybody knows that TraceLink does have the largest end-to-end digital network for the life sciences industry, right? And so over the last 10 plus years, we've built this network, and it's been, you know, and we've got members from all across the supply chain, and it's to date it's all been pretty much track and trace compliance focused, and now what we are hearing from our customers is now that we have this network built, they're connected to their partners for the track and trace and compliance, they now have all these initiatives around digitizing their supply chain. So being able to exchange more types of digital documents with their partners. And so that's really where Mint is going to come into play. And this being able to get this sort of digital supply chain intelligence is critical for a lot of companies, because, you know, upwards of 90% of the supply chain is global. You know, anybody in the supply chain can disrupt the supply chain. I think we all learned a couple of years ago that all it takes is a boat parked across the Suez Canal to cause all sorts of issues, right? You know, ERPs require this information to really be effective. Real-time supply chain information really helps companies make better business decisions, and especially when you're dealing with people who are external to your company, getting that real-time information, you know, isn't always possible. And then, you know, the better the industry does at sort of having this collective intelligence about the status of the supply chain, essentially makes, you know, supply chain management easier and transforms it. And you know, the current methods for doing this aren't overly efficient. They tend to be costly, and they often don't scale to 100% of your supply chain, right? And so, you know, there's questions we hear from customers a lot is, you know, did my PO make it? Is my order ready to ship? You know, how much inventory does my 3PL partner, my CMO partner have? Where is my shipment? Right? All these are real world questions that, often today, their way they're solved is people throw more people at the problem. So they have entire teams of people whose job it is to to follow up with various suppliers and customers and other types of partners and get this information through emails, spreadsheets, PDFs. Sometimes there's some individual portals, right? So sometimes people put out portals, but then everybody has their own portal. So as if you're like a CMO type partner, you might have 5, 6, 7 different customer portals you need to log into. And then what some have done is for sort of maybe their top tier partners, the very key partners, they have established point-to-point connections, often using EDI, Edifact, those types of things. And doing those point-to-point, while it's great at a very small scale, it really doesn't scale out, to the full supply chain. And we know, we have some customers, on the MEH side who have literally hundreds of CMO partners and 3PL partners that they work with. And on the, our CMO customers, they literally have hundreds of MEH customers that they work with, right? So, these types of challenges scale up very, very quickly. And so, the key thing here is everybody in the supply chain is facing these. It's not just the MEHs, it's not just the CMOs, it's not just the 3PLs. It's literally this is across the supply chain. And so this is where TraceLink Mint comes in, right? And so what Mint is all about is helping all parties within the supply chain to exchange business data across the TraceLink network, right? So we've already got all these connections between companies for exchanging things like serial numbers and shipment data and things like that for track and trace and compliance. And you can use those, basically those same connections to be able to exchange other types of data, right? And so we were able to do this where, we can do it where it's system to system. So you have two systems talking to each other. We can actually support sort of having a system on one side and a user interface on the other side. So system to person, and then even potentially person to person, where both sides are just using a user interface. So once again, we have multiple capabilities and multiple different relationships. And we're really trying to, what we're trying to do is orchestrate all these different business processes that you have across the supply chain and digitize them, right? So try to take all of these different transactions and out of, emails and PDFs and spreadsheets. I mean, we have examples of customers exchanging, upwards of 10, 15 spreadsheets a month with their CMOs with various types of information. We have examples of, customers getting inventory data once a month from their CMO and then taking a month to reconcile it. So data is 2 months old by the time they're making business decisions on it. So the idea is to, digitize these connections, make them automatic, and make them seamless. And this is the full breadth of transactions that we're looking to digitize across 2024. So the ones that are in dark blue, we already have things like PO acknowledgement, advanced ship notice, invoice, right? These are the first ones that we started with, but all these others are going to be coming over 2024. And it's the breadth of relationships, whether you're external manufacturing, you're going direct suppliers, you have 3PL companies, customers, wholesale distributors, etc. All of these different parties in the life sciences supply chain exchange all types of information all the time, right? And we're really trying to standardize that on some key transactions, make sure we can digitize it and speed up the whole process. And so, I'm just going to give you a couple examples of like what we're calling orchestrations, which is, sort of a set of business processes between two types of partners. So this is an example of an external manufacturing orchestration where you have sort of an MAH on one side, maybe they have SAP, you have a CMO on the other side, maybe they have Oracle, right? And these are all different types of data that they're exchanging on a regular basis, most likely today through things like email and spreadsheets, maybe PDF files. But you have purchase orders, you have purchase order acknowledgements. When the CMO ships, you get ship notifications, you get the invoice. You have the remittance coming back, and then there's information about inventory adjustments. The MAHs could share their planning schedules or forecasts, right? So there's all these types of data that we know are going back and forth between these types of partners on a regular basis. And what we want to do is, as I mentioned, is through Mint, we'll be able to digitize these, make them more consistent, make them across the board, and allow you to do them with all of your partners, right? So whether you're a CMO or an MAH, you don't have to do it just for the top tier ones. You can actually do it for all of them. And then correspondingly, if we were to look, at a similar type of thing for like an MAH and a 3PL, right? Is, there's an orchestrated set of transactions that happen between a 3PL and an MAH. And then looking from an MAH downstream to a customer, right? So, a great example is the MAH to customer, this advanced ship notice. This is something we've actually been asked for years, is the ability to send a serialized advanced ship notice downstream to customers to be able to support, specifically countries where maybe the wholesale distributor or the importer in a certain country can do the reporting for you, so you don't have a reporting requirement as an MAH, but your importer does have the reporting requirement, but they need that serial number information to be able to do the reporting. The serialized advanced ship notice through Mint allows you to do that. So we have customers today, for example, doing that with some of their partners in countries like Kyrgyzstan and Saudi Arabia, right? So this is, all of this information can be serialized. It can be not serialized, right? So it allows us to once again give customers this capability to send all these other transactions that they're probably already sending in some way, shape, or form to their partners, but it's most likely not electronic, not on a regular basis, and it's most likely with a small number of partners and not with all partners. And the key for Mint is will allow you to, do it all electronically, but also to scale it up to all your partners. And then in terms of sort of, getting started with Mint, right? So what we're trying to, encourage companies to do is, get started. Pick one, pick a key partner, some key transactions, and get started, right? And we can very, very quickly, if you've worked with TraceLink before, you know that we can get you, on the network, get your partner on the network. We will, as always, onboard your partner for free. We'll do all the work with your partner to be able to integrate them and sort of get your own system up and running. And we're doing it today for a very sort of low fixed fee. And the fixed subscription, the pricing model for Mint is a little bit different. It's basically on a per partner basis. And it's, I don't have the information here. You'd have to talk to the salesperson, but it's standard across the board, right? The pricing per Mint is exactly the same for everyone across the board. And then, our goal here is as we want to digitize, get everything digitized. And so, we're going to commit to getting you up and running. We're going to commit to getting you connected to your partners, getting your partner connected, and getting the data flowing as quickly as possible. And just like we did in the track and trace world, we have an entire team of people whose entire job is to get the partners up and running at no cost to you, right? So there's no cost to your partner to get connected in. There's no cost to your partner to get integrated to TraceLink. If they have a special format of the data that they require, we will build a map to their format at no cost to you or no cost to the partner. So, all of that is, continues to be the way that TraceLink does business. And so, we try to offload as much of that work off of our customers as possible. So once again, wherever your role is in the supply chain, whether you're an MAH, a CMO, or a 3PL, our commitment is to do the same thing regardless of who what role you play and who your partners are. But there's never any cost to the partner. And even for Mint, the cost to our customers for the integration is much, much lower than track and trace compliance was. And so, I know we've gone through this very, very quickly, but, some of the key takeaways that we want people to remember, right, is these things that I mentioned at the beginning. So, most of your supply chain is often global or virtual. And, today, if you wanted to connect to all those, you'd have to do a bunch of point-to-point connections. With TraceLink, you just maintain your single connection to us. Your partners maintain a single connection to us, and then you can exchange data with anyone who's on the network. Anyone, as we talked about, can disrupt your supply chain if there's issues. And so, we do, the pricing is per partner. It's a very low cost per partner, and really enables you to scale up from maybe top 2 or 3 partners that you have to all of your partners if you so choose. The ERPs, getting as many ERPs and having that supply chain information to really be effective. Our integrate once model allows you to, get more out of each connection. So you have one connection to TraceLink, and we can establish the TraceLink to your partners to maximize the value that you're getting out of your ERP by being able to bring more data into it. Getting the data in real time really helps you make better decisions from a business perspective. And, as I mentioned, we support whatever format the partners need. If we need to, we will create the map to their format, and we will integrate to any system. And we'll actually offer multiple levels of integration. We'll be able to offer an integration, sort of a file-based integration where, they'll send in XML documents or CSV documents. We'll be able to have a full API integration where they're hitting our API directly, or we'll have a user interface for maybe smaller partners who don't have key systems or maybe aren't ready yet to fully integrate a user-based system to allow them to, transact with you without having to do a system-to-system integration. And then finally, getting all this information is, this digitizing your network. It's kind of that first step towards collective intelligence. So really understanding what's going on across your supply chain, right? You really need to get this data into it. And that's really what Mint is all about, is taking all this supply chain data and getting it into your ERP system so that you can make, better decisions. So I know I've gone kind of quick, but this is just a real super high level overview. And I guess, Laura, at this point, we can, I think you have a couple of questions.
Yeah, thank you, Peter. I'm just, a couple of questions. How long do you envisage the implementation to take typically? I know
that's always a little bit of a tricky question, but the implementations to Mint, we're hoping go a little faster than maybe things did in the track and trace world. A couple of reasons for that. One is we are actually actively sort of pre-building integrations to common systems. So, for example, where out of the box, we will have maps for things like iDocs for SAP and X12 and Edifact formats that a lot of systems use. We are also working with some of the key ERP vendors like NetSuite, MS Dynamics, to sort of working with them to try to pre-build sort of some of that maybe direct API integration capability. So, it always comes down to how ready each customer and their partner is to work with us. But generally speaking, TraceLink can move as fast as they can. So it really comes down to, having the resources available typically from your technical team who have to deal with your ERP system, having them available to be able to work with us to get it done. But, if I had to guess, we're probably looking at, 2 to 3 months, just at a high level, with many, many variables going into that.
Thank you. And do you kind of see any challenges that you might be faced with onboarding certain partners or like getting the data?
Yeah, it's not necessarily certain partners. I think one of the keys to all of this is the our customer and their relationship with their partners, and that it's always a business relationship, and it's always the partner and the customer being on the same page regarding the benefits to both of you of digitizing this data, that the investment is worth it. Your partners get the same benefit of once they've kind of integrated with TraceLink the first time. The second, the third, the fourth, gets much, much easier, right? So there's always going to be a little work for any given transaction integrating to TraceLink the first time. As I mentioned, we're doing things to make that as easy as we can. But once you've integrated into TraceLink for your first partner or your first customer, that second, third, fourth, fifth one get much, much, much easier.
Okay, thanks. And just a final question. You mentioned certain markets. Well, you mentioned specific markets. Does it work across all markets?
It's a good question. So the one feature that I mentioned around being able to send serialized ASNs to your downstream partners, that is limited to specific markets right now. I think there's a total of 9 markets that it works for. I wish I could remember all of them up, but it's things like UAE, Bahrain, Brazil, Kyrgyzstan, Kazakhstan, Saudi Arabia, South Korea. I don't know if I'll remember them all off the top of my head, but it's a number of markets, and we can actually add additional markets. Those are just the markets that customers have requested and we've tested for, but there's no reason we couldn't add other markets as needed. But otherwise, all the other transactions, that's specific to this downstream serialized shipment transaction. All of the other transactions, so POs, invoices, etc., are totally agnostic to the market. The market doesn't have any impact to those at all.
Okay, cool. Thank you, and thanks for the presentation. I'm just going to see if anyone has any questions. If you want to unmute the line now or put any questions in the chat box, I'll keep an eye open for any questions coming through there.
Hi, yes, I have a few questions. So thanks for the presentation. It was quite interesting because it already started answering some of the questions which we have. So our main implementation of Mint is to supply Kyrgyzstan, which is a new market for us. So it's very small volumes. And one of the questions which I was going to ask, but I think it was already answered, is we don't, at least I don't know what our importer who will be reporting the serialized data, what solutions they have. I would not be surprised that maybe in such markets with small volumes, maybe everything is working more or less on some manual, flow. So my question was, will such an importer, if they don't have any SAP system or whatever, would they be able to use a user interface to our TraceLink and maybe from there generate the report to extract the serial numbers?
Absolutely, and in fact, we have a customer that we're working with in their partners in Saudi Arabia, and they don't have an integrated system yet. And so, yeah, they can actually, we by default, we kind of generate a standard EBCIS file. But if the partner has a specific format that they want the data in, as I mentioned, we could map to that format. But yes, they can we can drop it in an SFTP folder that they can then just go pick up, or they can log into the TraceLink system and download it from the user interface, kind of like you can with track and trace files through. It's not the in Mint. It's not called. It's called B2B messages. It's not called an info exchange, but it's pretty similar concept that they can see the files that that we've generated for them, and they can download them through the user interface, and then they can do whatever they need to do with them. So I happen to know Kyrgyzstan, right? They're going to have to somehow digitally sign them and then upload them to the system in some way, right? But they will have full access to the files.
Okay, so that's clear. Now, when we come to the onboarding, so from our perspective, from serialization team perspective, we have not yet approached this partner, because usually the approach is done by the business side with the local team. Is there some I would say some checklist, like what needs to be answered, to get an indication? Maybe this partner is already serving some other MAH, and maybe it's already onboarded into TraceLink. I was thinking if we could have some key basic questions. What do we need to ask for? What kind of solution do you have? So maybe this is something which TraceLink could maybe draft for us to help the initial discussion until we
absolutely.
hand over to TraceLink.
Yep, absolutely. And your TraceLink project team that you're working with, they should work with you to sort of create what we call a partner onboarding presentation that would include things like that. So, they would, we sort of have some standard slides, and then we take those slides and we customize them to your sort of specific situation. And that can include information like that. And it will talk about, how we'll connect that partner with a network success manager, and that network success manager will work with them to get them into the TraceLink system and all that. So absolutely, that should be part of what you get from your TraceLink project team.
Okay, so we are in the process of signing the SOW. So I assume after that is signed, we will get like a technical support person. Like we do for standard onboardings.
Yeah, you'll get a project manager and what's called the technical consultant, and they'll work with you to put that information together.
Okay. And my last questions for now, if we look at this solution maybe a little bit more long term, because of course, as I said, we're going for this specifically for Kyrgyzstan. So for now, that would be our main aim to implement this. We have also situations, and I heard you mention Kazakhstan, so I would be interested maybe in which markets Mint can be used. But for us, in this scenario, which I'm going to mention, it would encompass Kazakhstan, Uzbekistan, and also Russia. Maybe a little bit more or less Russia, but Kazakhstan and Uzbekistan for sure. So we are doing normal onboardings with a number of our partners, but we also have other partners where basically, I mean CMOs, contract manufacturing, who are not supplying us with serialized product. For the simple reason, for them, it doesn't make business sense to implement crypto module, and so on. So they don't want to go for that. So basically what we are doing is, at least we are doing this for Russia, but Uzbekistan and Kazakhstan is still in progress. So I cannot say we're 100% there. But if I take Russia as an example, and we are doing like downloading cryptos from CRPT, putting them on a label and fixing them to the box at customs broker. So we have like a manual process. So basically we are setting up the pool for the G10, getting the series, generating cryptos, and then assigning the data manually and sending the data manually to the customs broker. Could this work maybe in the future, and that we could like use Mint to exchange, serial and cryptos with?
So we actually have a Russia crypto app that does that.
We have the crypto apps, but if CMO is not providing us with serialization service, these custom brokers, they are not going to onboard directly to us. So we need something
Right.
which is simple, like in this case, for example.
Potentially, I think we'd have to work out the details. I mean, Russia, as you know, is unique, and
Yeah.
and you know, we have a lot of experience with Russia. So you know, I can't go into all the details in this meeting, but my suggestion would be once you have your project team, you know, talk about that use case, and we can certainly see what of our solutions would best provide the capabilities you need. Right. So it really does come down to, you know, the specifics. And, you know, with Russia, the addition of the crypto codes does make it a little different, especially because you're not really supposed to pass those around very much, right? And so, so Russia has definitely, you know, between Russia, Uzbekistan, Kyrgyzstan, Kazakhstan, they're all similar, but a little different. So,
yeah, for sure. But what I'm thinking about is something maybe a bit more long term. So,
yep. But yeah, I mean, definitely, you know, your project team can do it, and if not, we can have like a deeper dive discussion and bring in, you know, our product people who can, you know, maybe answer a more specific question.
Yeah, it's not something which is urgent. It was just coming up in my head as I was listening to your presentation, because this could technically be the perfect solution for something like this, because it's just exchanging basic information with a partner, which is the customs broker, which is not, you know, technically geared for full serialization. They are just doing us like a favor, you know. They're just taking the serials with the cryptos, putting them in some software, you know, printing to the code and on a sticker and fixing it manually on the box. So it's like a secondary repacking operation on their side. So they don't really want to go, or at least there was never discussion that they are planning to go into full level 4 solution. But okay, I'm taking note of this, so we can bring it up later. Other than that, I think that's all from my side.
Great. Anything from anyone else, Laura?
I haven't seen any questions come through the chat, but thank you for your questions, Antoine. And as always, if you do have any questions following the tech talk, then just email us at TraceLinkUniversity@tracelink.com. But thank you very much, Peter. That was really interesting. And, you know, maybe we could have another tech talk on this at a later stage as well, as things develop.
Absolutely.
So thanks, everyone. Thanks for your time.
Thank you.
Take care.
Thank you. Have a nice day. Bye-bye.
Goodbye. Bye.